All right, well, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us today. We're excited to have you for the IMA Student Series Finance and Accounting Professional Panel. And today we have a great lineup of panelists, and we're looking forward to hearing from them shortly. And Mary and I are pretty shocked at the incredible turnout that we had for this event today. We had over 1,200 students register. I know we also had some faculty, but we're starting to see some more trickle in. So that just tells us this is something that you want to hear. And just a little background about this panel. We started this in April of 2021 because we were hearing from students they wanted to hear more from from professionals learning about the vast array of career opportunities in management accounting. And because of the overwhelmingly positive feedback that we received, we decided to hold this twice a year. So we hold this in the fall semester and the spring semester. Each time we try to bring on different panelists from a variety of industries, backgrounds, and companies. And I know you're going to enjoy today's session today. We're very excited about it. So I'll start off with introductions. My name is Tyler Skelton. I'm a business development manager at IMA. Joining me today is my colleague, Mary Patterson. So we actually split up the United States. I cover the Western US. I'm based out of Seattle, Washington, and she's based out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and she covers the Eastern United States. And together we work with colleges and universities to help promote the CMA certification, which stands for Certified Management Accountant. And we also promote other faculty and student resources we have to offer. And also, Mary will be our moderator for today's questions. I'll be in the chat once my portion is over, but please feel free to put your questions into the chat box and we'll try to get to those answers. So let's look at today's agenda. I'll be giving an overview of IMA and the CMA certification. And that portion is going to be pretty brief because I want to make sure that we're maximizing our time with our panelists. And I think that's important to at least cover an overview of this information because this might be the first time you're hearing about IMA as an organization and the CMA certification. Now, throughout the webinar, as I mentioned, we'll be monitoring the chat and we'll try to get to as many questions as we can. We will have some time at the end, but throughout this process, just feel free to write your questions, or if we don't have time to get to those, feel free to reach out to Mary or myself afterwards, and we'd be happy to answer those for you. So let's go ahead and get started. What is IMA? IMA, or Institute of Management Accountants, is a global association with more than 125,000 members who are accounting and finance professionals working in business. Our organization has more than 300 professional and student chapters located in cities and campuses around the world. So this creates a great networking opportunity. And that's something as a student you should already be thinking about. Networking isn't something you do once you get into your career. It starts right now. You want to start planting those seeds and start making those connections. So by joining an association like IMA, it's going to help you connect with professionals working in industry. And for some of you on the call, graduation is right around the corner. It's about to get real. So it's a great time to start networking right now. You also see on the map that we have offices all over the world. We're headquartered in Montvale, New Jersey. And IMA offers the CMA certification. Again, that's Certified Management Accountant certification, which is the global standard in management accounting. And then in addition to that, we have many other career enhancing resources that are available to our members. So let's take a look at management accounting and public accounting. And we use these two as an example because oftentimes when we're talking to students that are true accounting majors, they hear a lot about public accounting positions, and they may not be exposed to the variety of opportunities that management accounting has to offer. So I wanted to take a moment to talk about the differences between management accounting and public accounting. And I know we have some finance majors on here. Don't tune this out because you hear the word accounting. You'll see that some of our panelists have finance backgrounds in their education and even in some of their job responsibilities. Also, when I get to the CMA Exam Structure slide, you'll see that part 2 of the exam covers topics in finance. But this picture should help show the different roles and responsibilities of the internal management accountant compared to the external public accountant. So if you look at the left-hand side of the screen, if everyone could please mute, that would be much appreciated.
Oh, best friend.
At the left-hand side of the screen, this is the internal accountant. So they may be doing things like developing, implementing, managing processes. They could be doing internal or external reporting.
Whoa.
Can we please have everyone mute? Everyone check to make sure you're muted. Thank you. And then our panelists are going to talk a little bit more about what they do. And then on the other side, you have the external public accountant, where typically you're providing advice to clients on details related to audit and tax. So essentially, the management accountant helps the company to make money while the public accountant helps the company to stay in compliance. Now, these are both two great career paths within accounting, but there are several other certifications out there as well. Today, we're going to focus on management accounting and the CMA certification. Now, whatever route you choose, you want to make sure that you're obtaining the relevant certification. The CMA and CPA are very complementary to one another, and it'll help set you apart from others. And we have a great article about dual certification. Mary, if you could put that in the chat. This basically lays out a 9-step plan of how you can earn both the CMA and CPA. And you'll see that a couple of our panelists have passed both the CMA and CPA exams, which we'll hear more about in the future. The CPA is a license granted by a US state. Now, each state is a little bit different in terms of education and work experience, but for the most part, they're pretty much the same. The CMA is a global certification. So someone sitting for the exam in China, Dubai, India, the Netherlands, I saw there was people from Dallas, Boston, Seattle, you're all sitting for the same exam. Now, this slide here is very interesting because you're probably used to public accounting firms heavily recruiting on your campuses at the Meet the Firms events or Meet the Professionals, or maybe they attend your accounting club meetings. So you might think that's where all the jobs are in public accounting. But what this stat shows from the US Bureau of Labor Statistics is that over 75% of accounting and finance professionals in the US are working inside companies and organizations. So about 25% or so are working in professional services, such as your public accountants. So just because you don't see these companies recruiting on campuses all the time doesn't mean they aren't hiring. A lot of them have great accounting and finance rotational programs. You just need to find them. You need to use Google and find them yourselves. They may not have a team or the resources to go actively recruit on campus, but those jobs are out there. Now, what's also important about this slide is if you start your career in public accounting, and Mary and I have been doing this for a long time now, and we've seen this, it's very likely that within 3 to 5 years, you'll move into a position in industry, but that's where IMA and the CMA certification can help you make that transition. And even if you start your career in industry, there are a lot of great opportunities that are available to you. Now, I'm going to give a high-level overview of the exam structure. I know this doesn't look fun to a lot of people, but I think it's important to go over what's covered on the exam. The CMA exam is composed of 2 parts, testing your fluency in both accounting and finance. The exams are each 4 hours in length, starting with 100 multiple choice questions and concluding with 2 essay scenarios, which are like mini cases. The exams can be taken in any order. You'll see part 1 here is financial planning, performance, and analytics. It has 6 sections. This is going to be more of your accounting focus. So think of your cost, your managerial, your intermediate accounting courses. You'll also see technology and analytics included here. And then part 2 is strategic financial management. It has 6 sections as well. And here is where you're going to see more of your finance topics. So whether you're accounting focused or finance focused, these topics should look familiar to you. And it's also important to note, and I mentioned this earlier, that that you take this exam while you're still in school. I strongly encourage you to do that because a lot of what you're learning in your classes right now is content that's going to be tested on the CMA exam. And I think our panelists can tell you that your life only gets busier once you get into your career. So if you can get that out of the way now, it's going to help you avoid some time commitment issues in the future. So the next thing I wanted to talk about is a really great program IMA has to offer, which is our CMA Scholarship program. In this program, IMA offers 10 scholarships per year at every 4-year college or university. So I'm going to say that again. IMA offers 10 scholarships per year at every 4-year college or university. And this CMA scholarship covers all the costs related to the CMA exam program. The CMA scholarship is also available to all accounting and finance students. Now, the only stipulation to this program is that you must be nominated by a faculty member. So that's it. But this is going to give you an opportunity to earn a professional certification while you're still in school and pay $0 out of pocket. Then after that, you just need to get your 2 years of work experience and become a CMA. And just a fun fact, all of our panelists were CMA scholarship recipients. So we're grateful to have them here today. Now, included with this scholarship, students will receive 3 years of IMA membership. They will get the entrance fee to the CMA program covered, also registration fees for both parts of the exam. And then new this year, they will also receive their choice of course provided review materials from either GLIME CMA or Wiley CMA. So it's easily more than $2,000 in value. Feel free to take a picture of this and make sure that your professors are aware of this program so you can get nominated. So finally, I'm going to end on this slide here. As as a student getting ready to enter the accounting and finance profession within the next few years for some of you, it's important that you can adopt and adapt to skills in things like data analytics, RPA, and other technology applications in finance and accounting. And because of this, we have included as a free benefit to our student members, and I know there's academics on the call, we also are offering this to our academic members as well. You'll have access to free access to the IMA Data Analytics and Visualization Fundamental Certificate and IMA's Robotics Process Automation RPA series. So these courses are meant to give you some foundational understanding of these topics. And what's nice about the courses is that when you complete them, you'll receive a professional certificate from IMA and also a digital badge that you can put on your LinkedIn profile. And student membership is $25, and Mary's going to put a link in the chat to our student membership website. But these are just two of the amazing courses that we have available. And again, for student membership, it's just $25.
And actually, Lisa, if everyone's seeing Lisa do it, she's putting in all the chat. So she's with IMA as well.
So let's go ahead and get to the good part of meeting our panel here. First of all, we want to thank all the panelists for being with us today and taking the time out of their busy schedule. We're very appreciative of that, and I know this is going to be a great discussion. So I'd first like to introduce Tori Heavey. Tori is a tax associate at KPMG and has passed both her CMA and CPA exams. She's just now waiting on her work experience. Welcome, Tori. Next is Diane Isibor. Diane is a senior financial analyst at Cummins and earned her CMA in 2019. We also have with us Nick Pereira. Nick is a fund and insurance accounting analyst at Tesla. He also passed the CMA exam and is working on fulfilling his work experience requirement. And finally, we have John Strasheim. John is a finance and accounting rotation program analyst at Lumen Technologies. Along with Tori, he also passed the CMA and CPA exams and is waiting on his work experience. So welcome everyone, and thank you for being here with us today.
Great, let's get into the panel. And as Tyler said, all of our panelists have been awarded the IMA CMA Student Scholarship while they're in school. So that's what makes them all a little bit special. But let's go into the panel questions. Would you briefly describe your career after graduating undergrad and provide some details about your current company and responsibilities within your role? So Nick, I'll have you start us off.
Thank you. Happy to be here. I actually started working for my company before I graduated. I had the opportunity to start an internship with Tesla in kind of the months before I finished my bachelor's degree. I started at the company mainly working in the solar fund accounting department, specifically working on a lot of investor work. For example, we would calculate investor distributions. We would prepare the wires and create entries to report that on our trial balance and eventually prepare financial statements for those. When I transitioned to full-time, and at that point I had passed the CMA's second exam, I began to use the skills that I achieved on that exam and the certification to transition into more of an insurance role. I kind of leveraged my skills that I gained from the CMA certification to get my way onto that team so that I could kind of build something from the ground up. And right now, the most of the time that I spend at work is developing our insurance businesses and the accounting processes that are kind of surrounded with that. So in general, I kind of work a little bit of everything at Tesla, which is really great for my experience and my career. And I'm really happy that the CMA was able to help me get there.
Great. And Diane, I'll have you explain your career after graduating.
Sure, I'll try to make it short because this is 5 years. Actually, I got my foot in the door at my current employer, which is Cummins Inc. during the Student Leadership Conference, IMA Student Leadership Conference back in 2015 in Orlando. And so Cummins was recruiting there, and that's kind of how I interviewed and got an internship with the company. And then I did an internship the following summer. And then before graduating, I had an offer to come back full time. And so I started out in the company in Cummins Sales and Service, which is pretty much how I can explain it is truck repairs and, parts distribution. I'm trying to simplify things here. So I did an FP&A role there. That's financial planning and analysis. So very minimal accounting there. I did have a degree in bachelor's in accounting and finance. So just to give you some context there. So that was fun. I did that for about 1.5 years. And then I went into the finance development program at Cummins, which is a finance rotation program that allows you to explore 4 different roles in 4 different sites within a space of 2 years. So I started out in the Memphis Distribution Center. So that's more logistics and supply chain. And this was like a 1 million square foot warehouse. So heavy supply chain and material planning going on there. And then after that, I proceeded into a plant role. So I was at a Charleston turbo plant in Charleston, South Carolina, where they actually manufacture turbo engines. Huge plant, 11, manufacturing lines, which is big for a plant. And so that's where I got into, cost accounting, flexing budgets and things like that. So that was interesting. I did FP&A mostly there as well, and a little bit of accounting just to get that cost accounting exposure. And then after that, I went into corporate finance systems. So completely different. Surprisingly, everybody on that team, they're finance and accounting people. Some of them, CMA, CPAs, and, they do finance systems. So that was interesting and, a non-traditional accounting finance role. So that was good learning there. And then after that, I went into the corporate FP&A group as well as investor relations. So that's like the team that does all the consolidation of all the financials for the whole company. So that was interesting. So that was a very high level view of, a publicly traded, Fortune 500 company. So I got that bird's eye view of the company. And then I did that. I stayed on with that group after my rotations. I got promoted there and I was there for another year. And I just recently started a role with global planning and logistics, which is supply chain finance. So I'm, excited to kind of get back into operations and, business partnering. A lot of people that I work with are not finance and accounting people. So I think that's interesting. Getting in the details and understanding the business is really key in, a management accounting role, the textbook management accounting role. So that's my career so far. It's been fun and interesting.
That's great. And you've been there, what, 5 years, you said?
Yes, it'll be 5 years in a few months. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. And then Tori, will go to you. Please tell us about your career after graduating.
So after graduating undergrad, I stayed in school for a 5th year to get my master's of accountancy. And during that time is when I took the CMA exam and then the CPA exams. And then I just finished grad school last June and started working for KPMG in July. So I've started my career in public accounting. And I'm working on the family office and private equity team in the business tax services department. So our team is based out of the Dallas office, but we're kind of on a hybrid model right now. So even though our office has reopened, we still have the option to work remote and just attend virtually. Just on a day-to-day basis, I usually work from home, but I have been to our office a few times. I usually prepare tax returns and other adjustments for either high wealth individuals, or a lot of times we do their pass-through entities. So a lot of partnerships and LLCs. I guess when we're not in filing season, we usually work on kind of just one-off other tax projects, maybe preparing estimates and calculations for especially the individuals, their quarterly payments. And that's about it.
Great. And then John, last but certainly not least, let's hear about your career.
Sure. So I took a pretty similar path to Tori. After undergrad, I started a master's of accounting, which is when I did both the CMA and the CPA. And then I joined Lumen Technologies, which is a Fortune 500 company doing a finance leadership rotational program, kind of like how Diane did. So I started off my first 6 months in internal audit. And then more recently, I'm working with more in corporate finance with our treasury and capital markets group. So kind of what we do in there, for example, we have a divestiture recently, about $10 billion of capital coming back to us. So we kind of decide what are we going to do with that capital. So kind of automatically segueing into like what the CMA adds, the decision analysis section came in really handy pretty quickly there. But yeah, so for another year or so, we'll be rotating throughout more areas of finance or accounting. So I've found the CMA to be pretty helpful early on.
Great. And I hope for everyone listening, you're able to see that there's a wide range of what everyone on our panel is doing right now. And there's still so much more for them to learn in their roles. Well, great. We'll go to the next question. So kind of the best question we can ask is, what made you decide to pursue the CMA? So Diane, I'll start with you.
Absolutely. I would say it was during my internship with Cummins that I discovered the value of the CMA. I had heard about it through my IMA student chapter. I had my cost accounting professor and associate dean was a CMA. So I've, heard about it, learned about it, but it wasn't until I interned and I saw all these finance business leaders and, just really great, talented, smart people who were CMAs. And I also saw how valued like the company took the CMA, attending intern finance sessions and just learning about, this certification and how they encourage you to kind of pursue that was when I really opened my eyes to the value of the CMA. And then shortly after, when I went back to campus, I discovered, there's actually a CMA scholarship, which I took advantage of. And so that's when I decided, that I was going to do the CMA.
Great. And John, how about you? What made you get the CMA?
So I knew pretty early on that I wanted to start off in industry right away, recognizing that the CPA and the CMA are both good signals to employers. I also did recognize that the CMA, specifically for industry, I thought had a more applicable skill set for me. And just in general too, seeing kind of the overlap between the two exams, I realized that it would be kind of a good idea to add them both because I found there to be a pretty good overlap, and it almost like helped me train for the CPA kind of. So that's kind of why I did the CMA.
Great. And Tori?
When I was a student, we always had firms and different organizations coming in each week to speak to us at our Beta Alpha Psi meetings. And that's when I found out about the CMA the week that we had IMA representatives come in. And they told us about the exam and then also talked about the CMA Scholarship, which I'd never even heard of either of those before they came in that week. But I was taking our cost accounting class that same semester. So at the end, after I'd kind of figured out that I liked that side of it just as much, if not more, than like financial reporting, I talked to my teacher and she nominated me for the CMA scholarship. And getting the scholarship, I guess, is kind of what confirmed I would pursue a CMA degree.
Great. And Nick, how about you? Oh, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. I was kind of discouraged after our career fairs and meet the firms. Mostly the firms that would come were public accounting firms, and I just knew with my contacts like networking and the friends that I've had in the industry that public accounting typically meant like longer hours and relatively less pay. And so I was striving and really searching for alternate opportunities. Finally, in my course studies, I really wasn't interested in tax and audit. And finally, my professor had like a short little snippet in class as an introduction to the CMA. He invited the students to like an informational meeting, which I went to. And he really kind of opened my eyes to the career opportunities that were there and some of the more of the financial focus of the CMA. And I saw that as an opportunity to get my foot in the finance world. And that really helped. So I guess from then I joined our student chapter of the IMA and was a part of club meetings and all that. And then finally they talked about the CMA scholarship and I decided to apply. And I feel like because I showed a lot of interest to my professor, he selected me. So that's how I ended up with the CMA.
Great. All right, we're going to move on to the next question, and we can't let this panel go by without giving Tori some props. So not only did she pass the CMA, but she was one of the outstanding performers on the CMA exam for 2020 and received the highest exam score as a student, which is pretty impressive. So Tori, what advice do you have for students when they are setting up their study plans, and any other advice that you would give students as they're getting ready to study?
Thank you. Well, I'd like to start by saying I took my exam summer of 2020. So I don't know what y'all were doing, but I was pretty much just sitting around at home all the time, which none of us ever get to do anymore. But still, my advice for, I guess, everyone, when you set up your kind of plan to study, I always do a timeline before I even start any of the material. I like set out when I want to have my general dates for all the big exams, and then I kind of work backwards and schedule out which sections I want to do for each week. And this really helps me from getting like overwhelmed by the just overall amount of how much content there is, especially when you take all the exams, like both exams together. It's so much, it can be really overwhelming. So I like to have like this week's goals. This is what I have to do this week and get done. And it really helps me taking like the small chunks like that. I followed the exam blueprints that you can find online. I think it's on the IMA's website. And I outlined the topics and then moved through the tested materials by the sections the way they do it. I think that helps, taking it kind of like from the perspective of the people who set up the test. It really helps kind of guide your study pattern. It did for me. It helped me get organized. And then I usually try to do one section to make sure I have it down pat fully well before I move on to the next, just to, again, just keep from getting overwhelmed by so much, just get little steps and little wins. I think it helps me stay motivated, especially when it can be really a long process sometimes. Also, I always add an extra time to my study plan, so I never fall behind, because other things are going to come up, like you're going to get work priorities, family priorities, school. It's just bound to happen. So if you build in extra time, you never feel like you've gotten behind or like you have to cram. You just always have time to kind of keep up, I guess, your progress. So
Perfect. And Tori, I don't know if you're looking at the chat, but you are a rock star. Everyone told you how great that was. So
thank you.
Good job. All right. So now what students like to know is specific CMA concepts and skills that all of you are starting to see right now on your job. So I'll start with Diane.
Sure, I could go through the entire CMA content material that I've seen in the past few years. But as you heard earlier, a lot of my job has been around FP&A. So definitely those planning, budgeting, forecasting concepts, budgeting methodologies, activity-based budgeting, flexing the budgets, cost management, variance analysis, all of those you see in the real world, and is even more interested in the real world than the exam. I just wanted to add that. Also supply chain management, I think that's one of the sections on there, because I've had some roles in supply chain, internal controls as well. Whether or not you're in an internal control role, you're going to be talking to internal controls people within the company. So definitely having an understanding of some of those concepts, I think, is beneficial. And of course, in my corporate FP&A role, as well as some of my investor relations responsibilities, financial ratios as well, that's something that, I've definitely used over and over again in my responsibilities.
Great. And how about you, John?
Sorry, can you repeat the question? I was typing.
No problem. Can you give us an example of specific CMA concepts and skills you use at your job?
Yeah, so something I touched on briefly was the decision analysis and just kind of investment decisions and things that we want to do. So regularly going through a lot of our numbers and trying to decide what decision is better than the other, creating several alternatives, things like that, and kind of deciding on the best alternative. And then kind of something I've been talking about in the chat, I work a lot with our tech and innovation team. So the recently added technology and analytics section, the CMA, is very applicable to what I do pretty regularly now, working with things like artificial intelligence and a lot of other kind of different types of innovation tools.
Great. And how about you, Nick?
I think the biggest one for me has probably been like forecasting and budgeting. After I kind of understood the processes of our company, I was given the project during my internship of like kind of forecasting that data based on historical trends and, other information that's in our like legal agreements. So a lot of forecasting and budgeting, I'd say that was probably the biggest skill that I took out of it.
Great. All right, next question. So according to IMA, about 20% of their CMA members are also CPAs, and they can be very complementary designations. Why did you decide to do both designations, and how do you expect that it will help you? So John, I'll start with you because you kind of talked about that a little bit earlier. So if you want to go into a little bit more detail.
Yeah, both credentials in general are very good signals to employers and definitely help you stand out from others. CPA, especially in kind of the public accounting route, but kind of when you have both, I think it's a really good indication to employers that you can handle a lot of quantitative rigor. And that's a big emphasis that I think we're seeing a lot in the workforce now. And just in general, kind of being double certified, it's just that one little extra thing that can help you stand out on a resume. And just in general, I've found that even just like the CMA network within my own company has been very fruitful for me, and just being able to network with people with both the CMA and the CPA.
Great. And how about you, Tori?
Definitely agree with that. It definitely helps you stand out. Like you said, there's a lot more in public accounting for my company. There's a lot more CPAs. Almost everyone is a CPA, but adding the CMA, it definitely kind of gives you that extra edge. And beyond just the recognition of like a title, I mean, it's definitely come in handy. I guess I'm on the tax side, so I can only speak to that, but I think it definitely would be helpful for audit as well. But for us, we get financials from our clients. So we'll get them from whatever partnership or LLC that I'm working on during a week. And usually those are non-GAAP. It's other accounting methods that I learned about more in CMA than I really learned about studying for the CPA. It helped me when I was learning more internal accounting processes, because now I can understand their side of things, how they're thinking through, where they are getting their numbers from, where other people might work on corporations, but I hardly ever see a corporation. So I don't really use GAAP very often. So I think it helped me learn a lot that I didn't learn necessarily in some of my classes. It was more the internal managerial accounting.
Great. And I'll ask Lisa if she can put the article, because we do have, I know there are probably participants that are planning to do the CPA and maybe never thought they could double up with the CMA. We have a great article about doubling up with the CMA and CPA that will help you. So we'll put that in the chat. So that is our first set of planned questions, and I've been seeing tons of questions come through the chat. So we're going to go through that. One that I saw real quick as we go through them, but it's talking about work experience. Students are asking a lot of questions about the work experience for the CMA. Diane, since you've been at least out the longest, can you tell them how you achieved your work experience? Students tend to get very panicked about that, and they don't realize really once you start working, that is your work experience. But if you could talk about how you did it, that would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. When you start working, that is your work experience. It's nothing to freak out about. Once you pass the exam, naturally the IMA would ask you, they'll send you out a form. I believe it's been a while, but I think they send you out a form asking about your work, work experience. And, if you don't have that, that's okay. You get the work experience as you continue to work. So they have like a very detailed, I guess, rubric of what's considered working experience, as long as you're in, accounting, finance, management accounting, financial management, anything along those lines would more than likely count towards your work experience. And the time does fly really fast. It feels like, because I passed both parts in 2017, right? Then I got my CMA in 2019. I didn't even notice. And, and you can go ahead and put on your resume that you passed and your pending requirements, so experience requirements. So that way it's not like, hey, I passed the CMA, but I'm not a CMA yet, and it doesn't count. It does count. It still sets you apart on your resume. It still counts. You just don't get that certification and those 3 letters, behind your name until you get that experience requirement. But it's nothing to freak out about. The time passes by very quickly. And as long as you're, in that, accounting, finance field, you will definitely get your work experience requirement.
Great. And Nick, John, and Tori, they are all working on their experience now. That's why it's pending. And this question was coming in a lot. Everyone can do. You do not have to work under CMA for your work experience. You have a lot of the information about the work experience on our website. But as everyone said, as you saw in the chat, it goes by very quickly. So Nick, John, and Tori, they're already working on it, and pretty soon they will officially get those 2 years and they will become CMAs. So Tyler, are there any questions that you saw coming in?
Yeah,
We
so
can see a lot.
Diane and Tori touched upon this a little bit. So this might be for Nick and John. Could you explain exactly how, like who you met? How did you find the jobs that you got to get, John, you got into the rotational program. Can you explain just how that came about just a little bit more? I think students want to hear that whole process.
Yeah, so funny enough, I did network a lot and I had a public accounting internship. But really the company that I started at was really just a blind apply, which I find hilarious considering the amount of networking I did. And sometimes that's all it takes is just a numbers game. And so it's really about just networking early and making sure in the fall, even in August, September, that you are actively applying pretty much as much as you can. And I think really that's kind of the best way to succeed. Sometimes you just got to get lucky at the end of the day.
Yeah, I definitely echo what John said. I think I was kind of lucky too. I applied for Tesla on LinkedIn, and I went through the first round of interviews. My manager now, he told me I got to like the final 2, and they ended up going with the other person. But I kept in contact with the manager. I like followed him on LinkedIn. I said a thank you for giving me the opportunity to interview. At that point, it was kind of mid-COVID. I'd been applying for a bunch of internships and jobs just because my internship fell through because of COVID. And yeah, I got another rejection from Tesla initially, and I just took that opportunity to ask for like feedback. And I feel like they could really tell that I was really interested in the job. I had the experience. I had the education. It just didn't work out at the time. So they encouraged me to apply again. I applied again. After I applied the second time, I had passed the first part of the CMA, and I had another internship of like fund accounting experience. And so at that point, I feel like they were pretty confident that I would be a good fit. So like John said, it was a little bit of a numbers game, but at the same time, like if you put in a lot of work
Never give up.
And,
Yeah.
don't give up.
Nick, I think that's such a great takeaway for everyone listening to this panel that you got turned down by Tesla, but you still studied for the CMA and applied again. And that just goes to show everyone here, don't give up. You know, you could fail an exam, but hey, get back to the books and start studying. So that's such a neat thing. See, who would have thought getting rejected would be a good thing, right?
Exactly.
There's another one in regards to kind of what Nick talked about COVID coming up, and Tori mentioned this at the beginning of the discussion. Could you guys talk about working hybrid at the moment with the way the pandemic has changed how the workforce looks today? Do you all work remotely? How has your job changed? How has that impacted being in office? How has it impacted your roles and responsibilities?
Sure.
Yeah.
So my company did pay for me to relocate out to Colorado where we're based, but we have been a work from home just as long as I've been here. But we have the option at any point in time to go into the office when we want to. So that's kind of what I prefer. There's no minimal come here 2 days a week. You know, I go maybe once every other week if I just need to, get in focus. That's kind of what I do. But other than that, I kind of just work from home fully.
And then Nick?
Yeah, we've kind of hopped back and forth between it. When I first started my internship, I was like fully remote. Midway through this summer, they like called us back to the office in like a hybrid setting. But because I was an intern, like they just asked if I would like to come every day. And then COVID kicked up again. I feel like it was like November-ish. So we went back to a hybrid approach, and then in January, Omicron came, so we went like full time at home. So our Tesla has like a health and safety team that's tasked with like tracking COVID numbers and tracking COVID cases amongst all the employees. So they pay pretty close attention to it, and so there's a lot of changes pretty frequently.
Diane?
Sure. I feel a little bit sad that a lot of, most people on the call, students and, newer young professionals have to like start their careers in the pandemic. I did not have that challenge. But in the past 2 years, I've been working remotely. And in the past 2 years, I was in a more corporate role. So the industry that I work in is manufacturing. So people who maybe work in the plant or in certain warehouses are considered essential workers. And some of them, and regardless of whether they're finance people or engineers, some of them have had to go in, but I haven't. But like I mentioned earlier, I recently started a role in global planning and logistics, so I may have to go in a little bit. But what I would say about working in a remote environment is it's on you to kind of make yourself known. I know it sounds like a big responsibility, but you want to make sure that if you're working somewhere where people are not already prioritizing setting up that should I say one-on-one time with you or paying attention to you being new and just starting out, I would say take that initiative, set up time with people, make sure you're communicating with your managers, your peers, make sure you're doing your best to show that you're here, right? Even though it's virtual. So I would say just try to be present, try to always reach out, ask for work. If you feel like you have nothing much going on, always ask for work. Don't hide behind the camera. If there's a Zoom call, even if they don't require video, turn on your camera, right? So that's what I would advise starting out, and not being in an office if that's the situation for you. I would say definitely try to just show that you're present and you're willing to work and learn and connect with people as well, even virtually. Set up one-on-one Zoom calls with leaders. They will be more than willing to, chat with you and connect with you. But sometimes you have to take that first step.
And Tori?
Yeah, I think exactly what Diane said. It's been very challenging with starting work from a mostly virtual side. We have started to be able to go into office if we want to. It's optional. And I've gone a couple days, but the office is so empty. There's no one there. It's kind of weird. But I'm trying. You really just got to put yourself out there, like what Diane was just saying, because otherwise I could go weeks and wouldn't even see or speak to someone else. You have to kind of make those connections where I think in the past, there was a lot more opportunity, passing people in the hallway, seeing people getting coffee. You would just connect with people in different ways. Or if you kind of happen to be coming into the office at the same time every day as someone else, you just build relationships without being as intentional, where now it's like you have to be intentional about it to make that happen. I think networking is even more important now when nobody really knows each other, when we're all kind of in our own spaces. I think it's very challenging, but it's not too bad. I think everyone has kind of adapted. It's definitely better now. I think a lot of the companies have built their hybrid models, and kind of before, like in 2020, I think it was kind of like a scramble, where now it's like the companies have adjusted on their side and kind of started to implement new processes and new policies. Coming up, we have these virtual coffee chat roulettes where you get matched with a random person from the company. And it was like a little nerve-wracking to commit to that, because I was like, I don't know what's going to happen. But now I have a meeting scheduled with a manager from advisory, which is totally different from what I would ever work in from the tax side, and someone that I would never meet if I hadn't signed up for this. So you just kind of have to put yourself out there and kind of make networking opportunities.
And I noticed in the chat there were questions about networking. So I like what you said, Tori, of just making that effort to do that. Is there anything from the panelists that you did as a student that helped out with your networking?
I think the other panelists.
Quickly. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think they can answer better, because again, it was a different world when I was a student. I went to conferences, the SLC conference, FSI, other, professional NABA. I went to all of those, right? Because again, like one of the panelists said, I was only seeing public accounting firms coming to my campus, and I knew off the bat that I wanted to work in the industry. I had done a public accounting internship and I didn't like it. So I knew I always wanted to be in that decision-making type of role. So I would go out to conferences. But now, even though it's a different world now, there's a ton of virtual conferences. I think they're even more accessible. IMA had one some months back, And it was awesome. It was great. I was there with, my company, and it was just great. And it was open to like everybody, right? So I would say go to those. You're here. So that's, I guess this advice is not for you because you're here and you're doing the right things, trying to connect and network. So I guess in the virtual world, attend as many of these that you can. Connect on LinkedIn. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. That's good too. But yeah, again, you have to make the effort, right, in networking.
I would say your booth was very busy. I stopped by and you barely had time to chat, so that's a good thing.
And Nick, how about you? I know you wanted to say something.
Yeah, I think the two biggest things for me that really helped me get the job that I'm at, sending thank yous after interviews, that was like a huge one. Just because I was able to like, first of all, like kind of get to know them a little bit, and then also just shoot a LinkedIn without them just like ignoring it. And then secondly, when you're, I guess, corresponding with recruiters, if you're really on top of it and like reply very quickly and, give them everything that they need really quickly, it can really show them that you're really serious about the role, and it can kind of put you in a special pile, if you will, to make sure that you get the best chance possible. Because I mean, at a lot of companies, it's definitely a numbers game, but big companies specifically, like, you want to do anything you can to give yourself the edge, and I think those two things are really important.
Great. And just for others on the call, being part of IMA, I mean, a big thing that Tyler talked about earlier was the networking aspect. I mean, this is a global organization of accounting and finance professionals. So it's a great way to get involved just by being a student member of IMA. So great. I like this question, Tyler. I'm going to ask it real quick. Okay. Now that you're working, if you can think back, what do you think was the most beneficial class you took in college? Or what class do you wish you would have taken? And I don't know, maybe some of your professors are on this. Don't feel like you have to say their class, but so who wants to go first?
For me, I found learning technology very helpful. I work in a lot of data strategic roles now too. And just being able to kind of, for example, pull a SQL query and get some data, it's very helpful, and it really helps you stand out. You just kind of are able to take initiative in areas that a lot of people that you work with probably won't be able to.
Great. How about you, Tori?
I would agree with the technology. It probably was my most hated class. I hated learning Excel. Like, that's not how my brain works. Any of like our database classes, when we learned Access and all, like, I hated them. I dreaded them. But that being said, they've been some of the most helpful classes now that I'm on the job and working. Especially, it kind of sets us apart to like a lot of the kind of next generation. Like my manager, I was sharing screen with her, and it was something in Excel, and she's like, I know how to do some if, but that's about it. This looks good to me. And I was like, okay, well, if it helps you stand out, and it really makes it seem like you have something to bring to the table and bring to the team, when people know that they can come to you with a question about something. And being just like a first year staff, it's like, if you can offer something new that like someone else doesn't already know, that's awesome. And it really helps people to remember you too, which is really important when we're virtual. It's harder to kind of make connections and get to know people from like the professional side.
Yeah. How about you, Diane?
When I thought about this question, it was hard because I thoroughly enjoyed a lot of my, senior accounting and finance classes, that it was just hard to pick one. They were all very different. I actually enjoyed individual income tax, now that I think about it, even though I didn't want to do it for work. I've been doing my own taxes, so maybe that's where it's useful. But I totally enjoy most of, my core accounting and finance classes. But the one class that I wish I took, totally unrelated to accounting and finance, is Spanish. I wish I took Spanish classes. I'm so interested in Spanish shows now that I wish I took those classes. So yeah.
Good, interesting. All right, how about Nick? How about your class?
I think like any like business spreadsheets class or like IS class is really helpful. Kind of like what Tori said, if you can bring some skills that people don't already have. I know like there's one guy on our team that he knows like everything, like SQL, like a VBA, like everything. And when I know I go to like, even I go to him. And so it's just like to be one of those people, you make yourself like indispensable, like unfireable. And so not only to get the job, but to keep it, like those are really important. And it just makes your work a lot easier. I feel like if I didn't know that stuff from Excel, I would spend a lot of time on my projects, which would probably be a negative thing when it comes to my review. And I feel like because I know those things, I'm able to make it easier for my managers to review things. And especially when they have a lot of things on their plate, I think that's something that they definitely appreciate. So yeah, definitely business spreadsheets, any advanced spreadsheets class, I think is the most helpful.
Great.
And Mary, I think I had another one come through and it touches upon what Nick was saying. And then I saw John earlier answering about keeping up with technology and AI. Are any of you using IMA's free resources to help you keep up? And how important is it that you are staying up on the latest changes in accounting and finance for your jobs? And then John, do you want to expand since you were talking about that earlier?
Yeah, I used the IMA data analytics class, which I think was free at the time. Yeah, at least it just posted that. I used that one. I think that one touched on Power BI, which is, I would say my company uses that probably the most out of anything. I think Power BI is really kind of becoming the most common software that we're seeing, at least out in industry. And yeah, I think IMA does a good job of kind of keeping up with what the relevant software is. And, combined with my other prior background, I've felt like it's helped me keep up to date.
Did anyone else use any free resources from IMA?
This isn't related to technology, but I was looking at the other day, I get the weekly emails from IMA. I usually kind of like scan through them, and I pulled out it's a resume bank. And I mean, I'm not looking to change jobs right now, but if or when I was going to do that in the future, it seemed like a really good resource for getting your resume out there to just the whole CMA network. So
Great. Anyone else?
Yeah, IMA holds a ton of live webinars every month. And seeing that I'm a CMA now, so I don't need my CPE. So what I do is every month I schedule them throughout my calendar. And if I don't have meetings or, I don't have a lot going on that day for the topics that interest me, I tune into live webinars. And they usually have polling questions and things like that to kind of keep participation going, good Q&A, excellent topics. A lot of the topics are actually, some of them are around technology, some of them are around future trends. I've attended a ton of webinars that have to do with RPA. This lady, I forget her last name, but I think her name is L'Oreal. I think she works with IMA. She has great webinars. So those webinars are free. Just register and attend when it's time. So I do use those a lot. So those are free IMA resources.
Great. So in the matter of time, I'm going to move on to our final question. So since all of you have earned the CMA or getting your work experience using the CMA Scholarship, can you tell us why you think students should take advantage of the program? So Nick, I'll start with you. Your last parting words, I guess.
I think the first and biggest reason is because it's free. Like he said, I think it's like a $2,000 value. I know when I was in school, I didn't have the money to cough up for exam fees and all that. So yeah, the first one is because it's free. I think that the second one is just the skills that you can talk about and basically back up with the CMA certification are really important in negotiating not only like your salary, but even the projects that you want to be a part of. Like if you can say like, this is the experience I have, this is how I can help you. That makes it a lot easier for managers to make a good decision. So I think that the skills that are basically certified with the CMA, yeah, I think that's the most important. Great.
How about you, John?
Yeah, I think I was the only one that asked for a scholarship. So, I mean, and it's free. So it's you don't really have much to lose for me, Originally, when I went for this, like it wasn't something originally in my mind that I honestly was intending on like going super far with, but as I kept diving more and more into the curriculum, I started really enjoying it, and I started seeing the value of the CMA, especially in industry.
Great. How about you, Tori?
I totally agree. When you look at how expensive all the different like study materials have gotten, it just seems like a no-brainer if you talk to your accounting professor about getting nominated, and hopefully you've kind of proven yourself to them and networked enough to kind of they'd be willing to nominate you and get the CMA scholarship. It's just, it sets you apart, and for no cost to you if you could get the scholarship. It's just, like I said, a no-brainer. I don't know why anyone would not want to, especially now that they've added the analytics and moving to a virtual business world. It just, anything that could set you apart and help you learn new skills and let you, it opens more opportunities for you if you can bring something to the table.
Great. And Diane?
I will totally echo everything that was said. The first thing is it's free, so why not? Secondly, it gives you a head start. It sets you apart. You're already, giving yourself that extra additional edge before you, land that first job. It's a resume builder. And also, one thing I would add as well is when you start working full time, you may not have as much time that to study. So for me, I studied between breaks, like after the semester. I know it can be challenging to study during the semester as well, but when you start working full time, you're just not going to find the time. It's harder. It takes a lot more. It'll probably take you longer to take the exam because you have to space out your study time. So when you think about all that factors, and also that you've graduated and some of the material is not as fresh as well, so I would say take it as early as possible, and you would definitely you wouldn't regret it. Like, you'd be glad that you did. Like, whenever I think about my career decisions, that's one thing I'm so glad that I got out of the way super early on.
Great. And then Tyler, I think you have some parting things.
I do. Can you see my screen again?
Yep.
Hopefully. Okay. Well, first of all, we just want to thank the panelists for joining us today. I think, and everyone put in the chat, thank you for the panelists for being here. It was a great discussion. And like I said, we're doing this twice a semester. So plan on seeing this sometime in October, hopefully, is when we'll probably hold the next one. But I do want to end on a few things here just to kind of wrap up what we talked about. So if you're a junior or senior, you're getting ready to graduate at a four-year school, please take advantage of our CMA scholarship program. You see, it's done wonders for our panelists, and it's a great opportunity to be able to take a professional certification at zero cost. Remember, you just need to be nominated by a faculty member, but you pretty much automatically receive that scholarship just as long as they don't exceed the 10 scholarships. If you're a freshman or sophomore, you're not quite ready to sit for the CMA exam, become a member. You heard our panelists talk about the benefits of networking. Start that now. I know $25 could be a lot as a college student, but it's worth that investment into your career to become a member and be a part of a global organization. And then once you do that, you'll pass the CMA exam, you will get your relevant work experience, and then you can add CMA to your name. Like our panelists, they're just waiting for the work experience, then pretty soon they'll all be CMAs. I did want to point out the IMA Student Leadership Conference is back in person. Fingers crossed that this stays in person. We've been virtual the last 2 years. But it'll be in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, so right in Mary's backyard. But we're excited to be back in person. This is exclusively designed for students, and I know students enjoy this time. And every time they leave this conference, they're excited about IMA and just excited about the profession as a whole. So I wanted to leave you with our contact information, and I'm going to put in the chat, or maybe Mary or Lisa, you could put our LinkedIn contacts. Please feel free to connect with us on LinkedIn. I know Mary's got to jump off here soon, and so does Nick, but I'll stick around a little bit to answer any more questions. But again, we want to thank the panelists. We want to thank everyone for being here, and we look forward to seeing you next time.